Hey, I'm Solar and I spill spaghetti sauce on my shirt. I mean, I make hardstyle tutorials. This is part 2 of my series DIY Hardstyle, and today we're going to focus on leads. And so, this is where we left off last week, last episode. And just like first episode, I forgot to turn my speakers off. And so for leads, I think we're gonna keep this simple. So all of my layering tutorials up to this point have included harmony layers. And the harmony layers, in case you don't know, are like the second and like third voice in like a vocal, right? So you've got like one dude going ho, and some other dude going ha, and some other dude going oh, and together you get like a chord in the melody. I honestly have not really used harmony leads or harmony layers in a while now in my own production. That's for a couple of reasons. First, laziness. And second, often now what I do is for my last drop, I make one harmony layer, but I view it more as like a second voice. I do it way more loosey-goosey, and that way you can create like a really cool like additional sound of it. So we're making sure that the basic layering is very simple, very solid, and when you add that one layer in the very last drop, it will feel like such a warm and unexpected surprise. Let's grab a hashtag not piano, and I'm gonna layer today mostly with a bit of serum. In case you have serum 2 or just serum, I have a preset pack for serum which works in both because I made it in the first one. I might need to make a new one. I don't know, is there like a market for that? I'm firstly gonna do the bass because I like a bass. So I'm gonna send this to the mixer. Oh, by the way, I love that we now have like 500 whatever tracks. I hate that it starts with 16. It's so much more effort, and even if you do the add multiple, I'm kind of scared to do this because like I did this once and the fucking program crashed. So one step forwards, 2 steps back. I'm just getting angry all the time. That's fun. So yeah, let's get the bass here. And we didn't name the bass synth. You can do that if you want. You can call this bass or whatever, which makes the whole thing more clear and obvious and boring. I mean, you need to make some difficulties for yourself, right? So we got the bass there. We're gonna distort the living fuck out of it because it's hardstyle. Much better. It's facing like there's no tomorrow, but that's fine. I'm gonna grab an EQ. I'm just gonna boost it. That should be fine. And let's work in pattern mode for a sec. It starts on a C, which is annoying. Yeah, this is problematic. The baseline right now will be starts with a C, like for a normal euphoric drop, this will be fine. However, I might be able to shove a mid-intro, like an anticlimax in this project, and starting with the C is a bit of a pain in the ass, so let's not do that. Let's invert the fucking thing first. Or transpose, I'm not sure, this is my first day doing music. So let's see, what if we move this up a little bit? Yeah. So right now it starts with an F, and an F is like a all-powerful being, right? It's just super fucking low. So we could leave it at this, but maybe we can add some flair to it. And the way I like to add flair to it is pitch bends. Boom. Yeah. So I'm gonna grab... Honestly, I have a very boring way of layering nowadays. I already mentioned it's a very simple approach, but I found a couple of layers that I just need to have in there. I have this one lead sensory. Sorry, it is part of my SWR Ultimate Hard Dance pack for Serum. And so like the story behind this lead is I was trying to replicate sensory overload by Synth Soldier, because like that lead kind of intrigued me. And I failed miserably. Like this does not sound anything like it. However, I do really like it the way it sounds right now. So yeah, I'm not complaining about that at all. I'm just super happy. Yeah, fun. Let's clone this. So for the second lead, I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do. I can do a lot of things, but actually let's not get serum 1, let's get serum 2, because I wanna try something. Yeah, let's go to this. So this is the Serum 2 bank by Fruity Masters. Honestly, there are some sounds in here that I just like way too much. And also, fuckingly, he actually included a dry version. He's been listening to my complaints, I think. Because I've been bitching about the amount of reverb and delay like in his other packs. This is not like that. So Clusterfunk Volume 1 hard dance kicks. Just get him. And so whenever you layer, what I recommend is kind of browse through your presets, browse through presets you got, like either made yourself or just downloaded or bought somewhere, right? Get like one for the main character, like the main sound you want your leads to have, right? So in this case it would be this one, and then find sounds with it that complement the main sound, right? So don't focus on how it sounds on its own, because that's just not relevant. You're never gonna hear it on its own. Just focus on stuff that sounds good together. And so with this, like, so to me, this one adds a lot of body, like a lot of punch and power to the whole thing. And this one adds the much needed high end. And at least for me, it doesn't really sound like it's clashing, so that's a win. Now I'm gonna make a chord lead, and for the chord lead, I am often grabbing, like for my own production, whenever I'm not trying to make a video or whatever, when I'm just on my own, I tend to go for Silent One, because in there, again, my buddy Fruity Masters, this is bad for my own business. I'm just promoting his shit right now, but like, this is honest. He has a very, very nice chord preset in there. Like the Always Hardcore, like I used to be a Gimme Access guy, but the Always Hardcore one without the delay and reverb is punchy, it's fun, it's great, I like this. So I'm gonna grab that, I'm putting it in there. I'm gonna pitch this down, or at least I'm gonna limit this, because this is gonna be the chord lead. And for the chord lead, it needs to follow the bass line so we can make the chords. So I'm gonna do it like that. Are there any overlapping notes? I don't think so. Cool. And move it up and down to make it follow the bass line. This is always my favorite part of making music, because it doesn't feel tedious at all. Like, not in the slightest. I'm not sure why you even brought it up. Fucking great. Let's grab a copy of this and just pitch it up. And for making chords, I've made a dedicated video on how I make my chords, right? It's a very no-nonsense, no unneeded theory video. I urge you to watch it, because it is essential for making music. I'm not sure why you want to make music if you don't get the hang of chords. So first, make sure you get that shit. But in a nutshell, I just count. There are like a bunch of different chord types. I often default to major and minor, like most in the scene. And then later I could maybe look for something more interesting. But in leads, it often kind of doesn't really work that way, at least in my experience. So I'm gonna count up by 3. So like this, right? So I'm skipping, right? So the notes I count are the ones I skip. So like there's a gap of 3, and I'm gonna skip 2. So you get 3 and 2. Now everything is a major chord. That sounds like fun, because it's a very happy and euphoric melody, but I'm gonna promise you this is gonna sound like ass. Yeah, very much not a fan. So I'm gonna grab all these notes, I'm gonna pitch them down by 1. And now you get the other type of chord. This would be minor. So from the bass notes, in this case our A sharp, count up 2, plays a note, count up 3, plays a note, right? This would be a minor. And I'm guessing this should also be a minor. Yeah, it is. This one sounds funky, but I'm pretty sure it is the right note. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's about it. If you don't know how to do it right, like what I tend to do is, again, like do the counting thing, and then just try every fucking single possible combination, right? And that's just one of 2 options for every chord. It's either this or this, nothing else. If you do it for every chord, I promise you, you're gonna get it. And if you don't, your bass line is off. And if that's the case, either try harder, or what you could do is you could remove the bass line, and then you could listen. So you could kind of like build the chord around the melody, right? So around the chords, or like the notes you have in your melody. And then based on that chord, you can kind of like, for example, like this chord could fit on there. Maybe like, let's see if we can make a match sort of, right? Like this would kind of match. Now with this, you can kind of deconstruct it, right? So you can invert stuff until you see the 2-3 notes gap like here. And if you see the 2-3 notes gap, you know that the bottom note would be the bass note. So let's gap everything back because I'm not doing that again. There we go. Now, is this for the chord leads? No, of course not, you dumb fuck. So I'm gonna pitch it up. Because I want brightness in there. It's already dark enough in my life, let's make some brightness in the music. And for this, there's no right answer. I tend to focus a little bit on like the way the progression itself feels, right? I don't really focus on, oh, there's like, it's too high, whatever, because what I'm gonna do to counter the high, whatever, I'm gonna just clone this. Yeah, I like this. So for the bass, I'm gonna pitch it down by an octave, so Control arrow key down. I'm gonna also duplicate this, so like 1 octave up, and then I'm gonna grab practically like the top note of the chord, right? So you got the basic chord layout here. So in this case, we would look for the F, or sorry, for the C there. And if you can't figure that out by looking at it, what you can also do is just count down, right? So we're skipping 4 notes basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're gonna pitch it up by an octave like this. And this adds a lot of warmth to the chords. So it's way too loud right now. So I'm gonna cut away a lot of the bass from this chord lead so it will sound even more fresh, but you get the crunchiness from the low end. So I'm gonna send this to the mixer without giving anything names because I'm a bit of a psychopath. So channel routing, starting from this track, or you could do Control L, but I mean, the L stands for loser, right? So you can't really do that. This is my actual lead bus. This is the one I use in my actual own production, right? I realized a couple of the names of the plugins in there look sort of intimidating because, oh no, they're not stock. And I know that they are not free, except for OTT, right? Actually, let's turn that on for a sec. I'm gonna send the leads to there. Let's do the EQing first and then we'll discuss the lead bus. It could be me, but I feel like the chord leads are not really bright enough. So let's do this. Let's see, is this everything? Yeah. Sounds like fun, and also I'm gonna shorten the notes just a little bit. I feel like with chord leads that does so much wonders just to... Yeah, this sounds like fun. Now I'm gonna add a reverb, and I'm gonna go for a delay, and I'm gonna also set up the sidechaining already, and then we're gonna walk through everything, right? Sidechain, that's how you spell that, I'm pretty sure. Let's give it a color. I'm gonna send the lead bus to there. I'm gonna send the delay and the reverb there with only, right? So the lead bus goes to the reverb and delay, and the reverb and delay goes separately to this. And so everything goes to there with no other, without going to the master directly. So let's discuss the lead bus first. I'm gonna disable everything, and we're gonna just add everything one by one. So the first thing is a CLA 3A. And so what this does, it does a couple of things. It squashes the whole thing a bit together, but also it says peak reduction, but I'm not sure why. And this could just be me misinterpreting something, but it sounds like it adds a bit of transient to everything. It sounds more punchy. And so that's like the main reason why I have this on there. So if you want to replicate that with like free plugins, what you could try is you could go for the kilohertz of kilohertz, I don't fucking know, transient shaper. And so with this, you could, for example, pump the transient just a little bit for roughly the same effect. And so like you see, you definitely need to separate the notes a little bit more because it does it way better on the chord. Right, like that's wonderful. On the other ones, it's kind of like it's smushed together so it doesn't recognize the transients there. So you could do something like that if you want. Then the PuTech EQP1A, I'm using this to excite the high end just a little bit. It's essentially like an EQ, but it's like a replica of an analog EQ. And so normally when you're using EQ to boost the high end, at least in my opinion, it tends to sound a little bit glassy, right? So with this, it does the same thing, but you can push just a little harder without it sounding glassy. If you want to replicate this with 3 plugins again, what you could try is maybe grab like a free dynamic EQ, so maybe like a TDR Nova, for example, and then just kind of boosting the high end from roughly 12K, enabling the threshold, lowering that, and boosting the ratio essentially. So like whenever something happens there, it kind of pushes it up organically. Now it goes the wrong way. Roughly the same, right? So then we grab OTT, and in case you're wondering, oh, is OTT super expensive? It's free, so yes. It's very shallow depth, and otherwise I didn't really touch any of the settings, but like this, like, you know the classic OTT sound? I want just a little bit of that on the leads. So without... And I recognize that all of these changes are very, very minor. And I know for beginners and for people just struggling with like refining their mix, minor changes do not really sound exciting. However, it makes all the difference, right? So I'm gonna do the one thing that you probably do on your lead bus, which is low cut. And my low cut, you can see it's kind of shallow and it pushes the high end again a little bit. So if I disable everything else except for the low cut, like this probably was your lead bus would sound like, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. However, of course, you need to ignore the difference in volume, which is hard to do. I recognize that. Like, this makes it a little bit less loud, but there are other qualities to the sound as well that happen. And what I recommend for beginners to like kind of get the hang of stuff like this, try adding stuff you don't normally try on your lead. So for example, like if I were to distort this, I would probably just grab a distortion, boost it, play with the settings and kind of make a mental note of what is actually happening there. And then like later, after like a bunch of doing that, you probably have a bit of a mental toolbox, right? And so whenever you feel like, oh, like this sound could use a little bit more excitement in the high end, you know at least a couple of ways to get it there. Just try a lot. There's no right or wrong way to do this, except for lack of practice. Just practice, and whatever you do, as long as it sounds good, no one's gonna give a fuck, right? Then for the reverb and the delay, I'm gonna walk you over the reverb bus because the delay is exactly the same. Instead of like a reverb plugin, it has a delay plugin. For the reverb bus, I have Valhalla Room with the long stereo hall preset in there. Nothing else, right? And yes, I agree, that's a beautiful reverb. However, there goes the punchlines of the leads we just worked so hard for, right? So we use a Fruity Limiter or like any other side setting plugin to press the reverb down while the leads are playing. And that sounds complicated because you didn't pay attention to my other videos. It is super simple. So in Fruity Limiter, you set it to compress mode, right? Then in the sidechain thing, you're gonna right click and you're gonna find your lead bus. The threshold can be set pretty low. I don't say all the way down because like all the way down kind of gets weird sounds. Then with the ratio, you decide how hard it actually presses. And with the release, you decide how fast it jumps up after it's been doing its thing, right? So I'm gonna let it play for a second. You can see the purple thing, that's where the leads are actually playing. So you see it doesn't press the leads all the way to the background, but pretty close, right? Like it's like a reduction of half, sort of. And you can see this line going up. It would be straight up if the release was all the way at 0. That would be just a straight hard cut, but that sounds pretty weird and kind of jarring. And if you move it all the way this way, you get a very different slope, right? So there's a bit of a sweet spot. I recommend again just to try a little bit, see what works for you. Now I like a little bit of a relaxed kind of walk up, because then you get like a difference between like your leads and then the reverb instead of like lead reverb, right? That little bit of like delay in between there makes it a bit more energetic. So the exact same settings from your Fruity Limiter can be copied into your delay. I'm honestly not sure why I always say reverb and delay, because in my experience, delay is the more powerful of the two. Like, delay really shapes this sound. And so for delay I actually use, it is the Hercules 2 delay prototype plugin. It's called Never Finished, also made by my buddy Fruity Master. I'm not sure why he included STD in there, but I think it's contagious. So if you want to like replicate this, the one thing to keep in mind is it should be ping pong, right? In FL Studio you have Fruity Delay 3 and it's a pain you have to work with, but it does the job. You can set the delay mode to ping pong and you notice that it doesn't really ping pong. Ping pong is when the delay goes left to right. And so in Fruity Delay you need to actually set the pan to whatever. And now it ping pongs. And you can even look for the side it tries to favor. And this is honestly not bad, right? Like you can use everything here to kind of fuck around with it, but honestly, this is not a bad delay. It gets a lot of bad rap because it's just fucking annoying to work with. But the sound is fine. Like there's not really like a ton of ways to mess up a delay. Now you notice the difference in like the high cut, and so in Fruity Delay 3 you have like a high pass or a low pass, and in this case I use like a low pass and just drag the cutoff down a bit. And then you get roughly the same sound, right? Like again, it's not a bad plugin, it just gets a bad reputation for being badly designed. But it sounds okay. And you can also see on both channels I have a Fruity Balance there. And for automation purposes, this is super important. Everything goes to the sidechain channel, so we probably need to do the sidechaining. And for this, we're going to use a Fruity limiter on compressor mode, and we're not going to do much with it yet until we're going to add the kicks. So let's enable everything here. Let's see how it plays around with the bass. Should probably enable that fucker and disable the piano. Shift click, you can lock channels. And so if I now enable and disable everything, this won't go with it, which is super useful. Too loud. Also, let's add a Fruity Wave Shaper here to the master. You could use a limiter, but this is a clipper, right? So what happens is whenever the volume goes over 0 dB, it just fucking clips the fucker. Which sounds like a bad thing, but it's hardstyle, right? Like, is more distortion really gonna hurt? Of course not. Not bad at all. So, let's see. I'm gonna separate the bass from the lead, so Ctrl X, Ctrl V, and now it's there. I added it in the wrong pattern. That's on me, I suppose. So like this, now it's in there. Also, let's just not do this here. Like, it doesn't really matter, but at least to me, like, this makes more sense now. And so what I'm also gonna do now is I'm gonna freestyle a harmony sort of on top, right? So I'm gonna grab another serum. I'm gonna go for SWR Ultimate Hardness. I mean, there are my own presets, but I made this for my own workflow. Like, none of these sounds are made because, oh fuck, I need to fill a pack. They're made because I needed a certain sound in a song. There we go. Let's send this to the lead bus, because otherwise I'm not gonna be patient enough to actually finish this thing. And now through this, you can kind of see where the old melody is, right? The original. So you can kind of see like the melody going there. So I'm gonna freestyle on top. Hell yeah! Like, eventually I'm gonna leave the volume somewhere at this level, right? It's a very subtle thing, but I like it a lot. But for now, I'm gonna push it a lot more so we can actually hear what we're doing. And so, this is why I like these types of harmonies way better, right? Because while, yeah, I can like... In traditional harmonies, you would probably do something like this. Like, you see the notes there. So you go like a little bit on top, right? Like, this would be like a traditional style of doing harmonies. Which is fine. But this has so much more character. And so sometimes this might be a little bit disorientating, so you could either simplify your harmony or lower the volume. No one's gonna give a fuck. So how I'm gonna implement this in the song is the second half of the melody will not be used until the last melodic drop. That's it, right? So if we were to make a melody introduction, we would cut it short there, right? And maybe like repeat if we need to. Now, of course, this is not a set way, oh, you need to do it like this. Of course not. I'm not, oh well, I'm a little bit of an idiot, but like not like that, right? So what you could do, you can have like certain notes being highlighted this way, right? Like you don't need to listen to everything I do and like, oh yeah, he said like, do it like this, so I'm gonna do it like that. So you could do whatever, right? You can do like that maybe, or you can like add like extended note. So I'm gonna add one more thing, and that's a classic euphoric kind of chord lead, in the sense of like, it's gonna be another chord lead, but it's gonna be a weird fucking off tempo steps. And so for that I'm gonna use a light supercell. For that I'm probably gonna get, maybe give me X's, honestly. You know the drill, right? Get a EQ in there. And so the smartasses amongst you probably notice that this is a very different rhythm to the actual melody, and so this will throw off our sidechain and our sidechain's reverb and delay, right? And so we cannot actually send this to the lead bus. So we could either just send it directly to there, but that's gonna sound lame. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just get another lead bus in there, and another reverb, and another delay, because fuck your CPU, that's why. I'm gonna send this to there, I'm gonna send this to there, and not to there. I'm gonna send these two to there. Yeah, I like this a lot. So for today's episode, this is it. I don't want to overcomplicate layering any further. I might mess around with the harmony layer, because at least in the last part it felt a little bit confusing, so I might actually counter that in a later episode. If you want private lessons from me, where we can just talk one-on-one in like a voice chat, I can show you my projects, you can show me your projects, and we can both figure out how to get your projects to sound even better. If you are interested in the private lessons, drop a DM on my Insta or TikTok at SWROMG. If you want to use any of the sounds I've used in this video, they are linked in the description. It is the SWR Ultimate Hard Dance Pack for the serum leads, and it is the Fruity Masters Silent Bank whatever number 2, which I will also link in the description. If you want to support me even further and you want some great kicks, I recently put out a huge kick pack with my buddy ep.2. It has nearly 200 kicks and all the files separated, so like the punch and the tails combined makes for over 550 sounds. It's insane. If you want to be part of a fun hardstyle community where you can give and receive feedback, where you can just talk about music production and gaming and whatever, join my Discord. It's also linked in the description. And with that, I want to thank you a lot for watching. It was a pleasure to be your host once again. Until we meet again.